Good evening. Welcome to the Government News Brief for Friday, April 7, 2017. In the news this evening, several technical training facilities now offer regional certification, stricter monitoring system of drugs and medical supplies to be implemented, and the core initiative has been introduced to the Aituni and Kokwani communities. These and other stories when the news returns. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. I am Tiffany Rogers. Here are the details. Close to 400 persons will now be able to access jobs throughout the region using their Caribbean Vocational Qualification CVQ certificates. Isaiah Braffett tells us more.
5 technical institutions today received close to 400 Caribbean Vocational Qualification CVQ certificates. The institutions are the Essequibo Technical Institute, Government Technical Institute, Maikoni Technical and Vocational Training Center, Guyana Industrial Training Center, and the Republic Bank Training and Development Center. Technical Advisor Ministry of Education Vincent Alexander says it is the first time that Guyana is able to offer the regional qualification.
And it allows for harmonization not only in Guyana but across the region, and therefore for the realization of the dream of the Caribbean community, a movement of skills across the region without any question about standards, without any question about the relevance, without any question about the acceptability.
Alexander emphasizes that TVET education is a way forward for the development of Guyana's economy.
I'm not knocking academics here, but the bulk of the manpower required to take a country forward is in technical and the vocational area. That's where the bulk is required. That's where production takes place. That's where the economy will find the human resource for growth. And so it's important that we come to recognize the business of technical and vocational education.
The technical advisor warned that TVET is not a second chance, but rather for people having the aptitude to get involved in a skill set that is as important as anything else. Holders of the certificate would have an easier time securing jobs across the region if they wish to work outside of Guyana. Isaiah Braffett, Government News Brief.
Minister of Public Health eyes stricter monitoring of drugs and medical supplies. Delicia Haynes tells us more.
A more efficiently run drugs and medical supply management system will be implemented in the health sector. Minister of Public Health Walla Lawrence says that stricter monitoring will reduce occurrences of drug shortages at medical facilities countrywide.
We're also almost 99% complete of the new structure that we will be putting in place to monitor the receipts and issue and transfers and write-off of drugs and gifts received. And so I'm hoping that somewhere by the end of this month I'll be able to present that to Cabinet, just to inform Cabinet what we will be rolling out in the various regions to ensure that there is monitoring and we can capture consumption. So when we're ordering based on the needs and not just ordering based on some other figures pulled from here or there.
The Materials and Supplies Management System will provide detailed data and guidance on drugs and medical supplies from the initial tendering stage to the final stages of distribution and consumption. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Public Health is currently training and deploying more pharmacists countrywide. This, Minister Lawrence explains, will complement the implemented management system.
Above all of that, we're also looking at putting some more pharmacies into the system, and we believe that that is going to help to alleviate the strain, because a lot of the issues has to do with persons doing multiple jobs, and so you have cross-cutting. There is no barriers in terms of what people are allowed to do because of shortage of staff, and so we're trying to ensure that we close those gaps and continue to work with the staff.
Drug shortages countrywide have remained a sore issue within the Ministry of Public Health. To solve this challenge, the ministry has conducted a series of investigations. These investigations have identified gaps and shortcomings at hospitals and storage facilities. Minister Lawrence is optimistic that this new material management system will eliminate further instances of drug shortages. For the Government News Brief, Delicia Haynes.
Guyana receives support from Brazil to ensure proper implementation of the Sustainable Development Agreement framework. More in this Seneca Thorne report.
The Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, in collaboration with Conservation International and a Brazilian team, recently hosted a 3-day workshop to conclude the final stages of consultations for the Sustainable Development Agreement framework. The event was aimed at ensuring that there is clarity on all aspects of the framework, while at the same time learning from Brazil's experience. Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Tini Alcock, says that the initiative is in keeping with government's vision for a green economy.
This framework is critical to long-term plans. It will ensure effective and efficient financial and technical support directed to the indigenous villages and communities for social, economic, and environmental cultural development in a green economy.
The framework will be used as an instrument to effect long-term changes in the lives of the indigenous people through effective sustainable livelihood programs. This will be done with support from key government and non-government stakeholders. Minister within the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Valerie Gridelo, describes the project as a good start, as it allows the people to be fully involved in its implementation.
Indigenous planning is so important. That is why the Sustainable Development Framework, is a wonderful thing, because it involves indigenous planning. It's not like, a group of people going and say, okay, Region 9, captain 2,000 people, this is the plan we have for you, I think it will work. No, it involves the community. The community discussing, giving their input with the guidance of people like VP, like Dr. Singh.
The Sustainable Development Agreement framework is currently being tested and refined in 49 communities and villages in Region 9. The project is aimed at providing financial and technical support to indigenous communities to help them achieve sustainable development targets. These include development of health services and education, preservation of the environment, traditions and culture, and improved governance. For the Government News Brief, Seneca Thorne reporting.
The Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman, updated residents of Kokwani and Aituni on the works of his ministry and how their communities could benefit when Guyana begins producing oil. Details in this Neola Damon report.
Residents of Kokwani and Aituni were updated on the discovery of commercial quantities of oil offshore Guyana, and now their communities would benefit from the new industry. Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman emphasizes that some of the money from the oil industry will go into a sovereign wealth fund, and part of that fund will be used to develop regional infrastructure.
I know the Minister of Public Infrastructure already has his projects, and one of those projects is this road from Linden right through to Kokwani. So the money will be used for one of the projects is this road, bridges, the bridge over the Demerara, bridge over the Kurupakari at Essequibo, a hydro project, and I believe a bridge over the Demerara are the main projects that are already on the list. We are thinking of future generations, so a percentage of all the money earned and a large percentage will be set aside for future generations. So that whatever we earn from oil now in 2020, people in 2085, 2090, our children and grandchildren should be able to enjoy some of it.
The minister cautions that the government is still in the process of creating legislation and regulations that will be in place in time for oil production by 2020. The residents were also told that the government is exploring whether to use the natural gas, which was also found with the oil, to supply the country's energy needs. This is important to the region, especially with the establishment of an onshore facility at Crab Island. Minister Trotman notes.
You are some miles off the Berbice River, but you are still in Berbice in a way, and therefore you'd be entitled to benefits because jobs are going to be created there. Like I said, housing, because a logistics base has helicopter pads, it has fuel depot, it has machine shops, it has kitchens, catering, hotel accommodation. It's a huge complex where at any one time you might have about 2,000 people working. So just imagine the different jobs that you can do there.
Residents were told that their lives will be transformed in the coming years as the country moves closer to oil production. Neola Damon for Government News Brief.
The Citizens Organized for the Restoration of the Environment, CORE, was introduced to communities of Aituni and Kokwani over the last 2 days. Zanil Williams has more.
Coordinator of the CORE initiative, Charlene Graves-Andy, launched the two groups and donated equipment on behalf of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure.
I want you to support and embrace them in every way to develop your community and have your community pick and span.
CORE is a new initiative of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Member of Parliament Odwin Rutherford explains that the works will engage in maintenance to improve communities' surroundings.
The intention is that the CORE workers will work to enhance the community, make it look better. Citizens organize for the restoration of the environment.
The aim of CORE is to empower and better communities through the formation of community groups that work to beautify the environment. To date, 4 CORE groups have been launched. The aim is to mobilize 20 groups across the country. Zanil Williams reporting for the Government News Brief.
Today is World Health Day 2017, which is being observed under the theme Depression, Let's Talk. This year's observance focuses on depression and it being a factor to high rates of suicide worldwide. Minister of Public Health, Valda Lawrence, says that Guyanese must muster the courage to talk openly about depression and other mental illnesses. Each year, approximately 15 to 20% of a population will suffer some form of mental illness globally. In estimation, Guyana's current population reflects that 112,500 to 150,000 persons are likely to suffer from some form of depression. Persons are urged to fulfill this year's theme, and let's talk about depression. We've come to the end of today's edition of the Government News Brief. The details of these and other stories can be found on GINA's website. GINA has an active Facebook page, and we encourage you to visit and like us so you can be informed as the news unfolds. Do join us on Monday for another edition of the Government News Brief. I'm Tiffany Rojas. Have a great evening.